On the morning of March 14th, 2042, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. People around the world woke up to their usual routines. Commuters rushed to trains. Students scrolled through phones before class. Farmers checked the weather, and office workers sipped coffee while staring at screens. The sky was clear in most places. The news talked about elections and sports, and the biggest worry for most was whether their internet would stay on during a storm. But deep in the quiet halls of the International Deep Space Monitoring Consortium, things were different. The IDSMC was a small group of scientists, engineers and linguists from over 30 countries. They worked together in a secure underground facility near Geneva, Switzerland. Their job was simple: listen to the silence of space. They used a network of giant radio telescopes, satellites, and deep space antennas to catch any signal that might come from beyond Earth. Most days, they heard nothing but cosmic noise, the faint hiss of distant stars, the whisper of solar winds, and the occasional ping from a lost satellite. That morning, however, the silence broke. At exactly 3:17 a.m. Geneva time, every receiver in the network lit up at once, not with a random burst, but with a clear repeating pattern. It wasn't music, not speech, not static, it was structured. Too structured to be natural. The signal came from the direction of Proxima Centauri, the closest star system to Earth, just over 4 light-years away. Dr. Eris Thorne, a British astrophysicist with tired eyes and 3 days of stubble, was the first to notice. He had been reviewing overnight data when his screen filled with symbols he didn't recognize, but they repeated in perfect rhythm. He called his team. Within minutes, the room was full of people in slippers and lab coats, eyes wide, voices low. "It's not a glitch," said Mei Lin, a Chinese signal analyst, her fingers flying over her keyboard. "It's synchronized across all receivers. Even the ones in Chile and Australia picked it up. They ran every test they could think of. Was it a satellite malfunction? A military test? A prank by a hacker group? Nothing fit. The signal had no earthly origin, and it carried a message. It took them 12 hours to decode the first layer. The aliens, if that's what they were, had used mathematics as a universal language. Prime numbers, atomic frequencies, the hydrogen line, all the classic signs scientists had long predicted would mark a true alien message. But this was different. This wasn't a hello. It wasn't a map or a song like the old Voyager records. It was a declaration, translated carefully word by word. The message read, "The Celestial Accord hereby declares the termination of the Truce of 3,000 years, effective immediately. Per Article 7, Clause 3 of the Pact of Silent Stars, humanity has failed to uphold its obligations. War is now lawful. Prepare." The room fell silent. Not the usual silence of space, but the heavy, cold silence of disbelief. Dr. Thorne stared at the screen. 3,000 years, he whispered. What truce? What obligations? No one had an answer. By noon, the IDSMC had alerted the United Nations. Within 2 hours, emergency calls went out to every major government. In Washington, Moscow, Beijing, London, and New Delhi, leaders were pulled from meetings. Military advisors were summoned. Intelligence agencies scrambled. Yet even as panic began to stir in secure bunkers, the rest of the world carried on, completely unaware. The first public leak came that evening. A junior technician, overwhelmed and confused, texted a friend, "Aliens just declared war on us, LOL." The friend posted it online with a screenshot. Within an hour, alien war was trending worldwide. Most people laughed. On social media, users joked that the aliens must be mad because humans hadn't paid their galactic rent. Memes appeared instantly. A cartoon alien holding an eviction notice, a UFO shaped like a court summons, a photo of Earth with the caption, "Your 3,000-year free trial has ended." News channels were split. Some ran serious segments with experts debating the signal's authenticity. Others treated it like a hoax. "Could this be a Russian psyop?" asked one anchor. "Or maybe a new Netflix show?" joked another. Only a few took it seriously. In Tokyo, a retired linguist named Hiroshi Tanaka dug through ancient texts. In Cairo, a historian re-examined hieroglyphs that mention sky visitors who came during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu. In Peru, an archaeologist recalled strange carvings in the Nazca Desert that looked like landing strips. But these whispers were drowned out by the noise of everyday life. Governments, however, could not ignore it. By midnight, the UN Security Council held an emergency session. Representatives from every nation sat in stunned silence as the decoded message was read aloud. The U.S. Secretary of Defense suggested activating the global missile defense grid. The Russian delegate accused the West of fabricating the signal to justify space militarization. The Indian ambassador asked, "If this truce is real, why has no one ever heard of it?" No one could answer. Meanwhile, in homes and streets around the world, people reacted with a strange mix of boredom and amusement. In a small town in Iowa, a teenager named Jake watched the news while eating cereal. "Aliens declaring war?" he said to his dog. "Dude, if they've been watching us for 3,000 years, they already know we're a mess. Probably just mad we ruined their favorite planet." In Lagos, a street vendor laughed as he showed the news on his phone to customers. War from space? They should try dealing with Lagos traffic first. Even scientists outside the IDSMC were skeptical. Dr. Lena Petrov, a respected astronomer in Berlin, told reporters, "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. This could be a natural phenomenon we don't yet understand, or a very clever human-made signal." But deep down, even she felt a chill. Back in Geneva, Dr. Thorne stayed late. He replayed the signal over and over. There was something in the tone. Not anger, not hatred, but something colder. Formality. Like a lawyer sending a final notice before taking someone to court. He thought about ancient myths. Stories from every culture. Sumerian tablets, Hindu epics, Native American legends, all spoke of beings from the stars who came long ago, gave knowledge, then left with a promise or a warning. Could it be true? Had humanity forgotten a promise made in the age of bronze swords and clay tablets? He didn't know. What he did know was this: the signal was real. It was not from Earth, and it said war had begun. Yet as he stepped outside the facility at dawn, he saw something strange. The world looked exactly the same. Birds sang. Cars honked. A baker opened his shop. No bombs fell. No ships darkened the sky. No armies marched. It was as if the universe had sent a letter, and humanity had glanced at the envelope, chuckled, and tossed it in the bin. Dr. Thorne walked home slowly, his mind racing. He knew governments would prepare. Militaries would train. Scientists would study. But the people? The billions of ordinary humans living their lives? They didn't believe it. Or maybe they just didn't care. And in that moment, standing under a pale morning sky, Dr. Thorne realized something terrifying and oddly funny. If the aliens expected fear, they would be disappointed, because Earth's first response to interstellar war wasn't panic, it was a shrug. And a meme. 6 weeks passed after the signal from space. The world had not ended. No cities burned. No alien ships fired weapons. Life went on. School, work, traffic, birthdays, and bad weather. Most people had already forgotten about the alien war. It had become just another strange thing that happened online. Like a weird dream you tell your friends about, and then never think of again. But not everyone forgot. In a quiet office at the University of Barcelona, Dr. Elena Marquez sat hunched over a table covered in old clay tablets. She was a Sumerologist, someone who studies the ancient Sumer people who lived in Mesopotamia over 5,000 years ago. Her job was usually slow and dusty, reading broken pieces of clay covered in wedge-shaped writing called cuneiform. But now her hands shook slightly as she compared symbols on a tablet to images from the alien signal. She had seen something strange. A week after the signal, a friend in Geneva had sent her a copy of the decoded message. At first she ignored it. She wasn't a scientist. She studied history, not space. But out of curiosity she looked, and one symbol caught her eye, a star with 3 rings around it. She had seen that before, not in a science book. In a temple tablet from ancient Ur. She dug through her notes, her heart beating faster. There it was, the same symbol carved beside a line that read, "The Skylords rest in silence. Do not wake them before 3,000 turns of the sun." She blinked. 3,000 years. She called her friend at the IDSMC. "You need to look at Sumerian records," she said. "There's something here." At first, they didn't believe her. Ancient myths, really? But Elena was stubborn. She sent photos, translations, dates. Slowly, others began to listen. In Cairo, An Egyptologist found a wall in a hidden chamber of the Temple of Horus that showed beings with large eyes standing beside pharaohs. Above them, stars were drawn in a pattern that matched Proxima Centauri. In India, a scholar found a passage in the Rig Veda that spoke of Vimanas from the Red Star, who made a pact with humans to live in peace until the great cycle ends. Even more shocking, declassified files from the Cold War began to surface. In 1967, both the United States and the Soviet Union had recorded strange signals from deep space. They were identical in pattern to the 2042 message, but weaker, like a warning. Both governments had buried the reports. Too strange, too dangerous, better to pretend it never happened. Now, with the new signal, those old files made sense. By the end of the 6th week, a small group of scientists, historians, and linguists met in secret in Geneva. They shared everything they had found. The evidence was not perfect, but it was real. Across continents and centuries, human cultures had recorded visits from sky people. They always came during times of great change, after floods, before empires rose, when writing was first invented. And they always left with a promise. We will not return for 3,000 years. Keep the peace among yourselves. Do not call us. The truce wasn't a myth. It was a deal, but why had it ended? The answer came from a young linguist in Oslo. She noticed that the alien message didn't just say war. It said humanity had failed to uphold its obligations. What obligations? Not to build weapons? Not to fight each other? No, the old text gave a different clue. In a Mayan codex, it said, "The Star Watchers care not for your wars, but for your noise." In a Tibetan scroll, when Earth screams too loud, the sky closes its ears. In a Sumerian prayer, may our voices not reach the silent ones. The aliens weren't angry about bombs or borders. They were angry about noise, not just sound, but signals. Radio waves, television, internet, GPS. Every time humans sent a message into space, whether by accident or on purpose, they broke the silence of the truce. For decades, Earth had been shouting into the void. Music, news, reality TV, cat videos, political rants. To the aliens, it was like someone screaming in a library that had been quiet for 3,000 years. They had asked for silence. Humans gave them TikTok. Still, even with this new understanding, most people didn't care. When the findings were leaked to the press, the reaction was strange. Some believed it. A few small towns turned off their Wi-Fi for a day just in case. A radio station in New Zealand played only silence for an hour as a joke. But most people just laughed harder. Wait, so aliens are mad because we posted too many selfies? Asked a comedian on a late-night show. The audience roared. On social media, users made videos pretending to apologize to space. Sorry, Proxima. Won't happen again, one teen said, holding up a sign that read, "No more memes." Then he posted the video and got 2 million likes. Governments were more serious. The UN formed a new committee, the Cosmic Relations Task Force. They debated whether to shut down all Earth-based radio transmissions. But how? The internet alone used thousands of satellites. Turning it off would crash economies, stop hospitals, silence emergency calls. It wasn't possible. Besides, no one knew if the aliens were even watching anymore. Then something changed. On a clear night in late April, people in Chile looked up and saw them. Not one ship. Not two. But dozens. Silent, black, smooth like polished stone floating in perfect formation above the Andes. They made no sound. They gave off no light, but they were there. Panic spread. For about 10 minutes. Then a tourist took a photo and posted it with the caption, "UFOs or just SpaceX again?" Within an hour, "Your alien commute" was trending. People joked that the ships were late for a galactic meeting. A coffee shop in Santiago started selling alien latte with black foam and star sprinkles. Even when the U.S. Air Force sent jets to investigate, the public stayed calm. The jets flew close. The alien ships didn't move. Didn't shoot. Didn't even blink. They just watched. When the pilots returned, they reported nothing unusual, except that their radios went silent the moment they got within a mile of the ships. No static. Just quiet. That quiet scared the military more than any weapon. But again, the world shrugged. In schools, teachers used the event to talk about space science. In bars, friends debated whether the aliens liked Earth music. If they heard Nickelback, I don't blame them for declaring war, one man joked. Only a few felt real fear. Dr. Elena Marquez gave a quiet interview to a science podcast. "This isn't a joke," she said, her voice tired. "These beings made a deal with our ancestors. We broke it. They're not here to destroy us, they're here to enforce a rule. And if we keep ignoring them, they might decide we're not worth talking to anymore." But her words were drowned out by a viral video of a dog wearing a tiny alien costume barking at the sky. Meanwhile, the ship stayed. They didn't land. They didn't speak. They just hovered, over deserts, oceans, cities, always watching, never acting. Scientists called it a passive blockade. The aliens weren't attacking. They were waiting for what? No one knew. Some thought they wanted humans to go silent. Others believed they were testing us, seeing if we would panic, fight, or finally grow up. But humanity, as always, chose its own path. In Tokyo, a group of artists built a giant sculpture of a laughing Earth with arms wide open. In Nairobi, musicians recorded a song called "Sorry We're Loud" and beamed it into space, not as a threat but as a peace offering. In Rio, children drew pictures of friendly aliens and tied them to balloons, sending them skyward. The response wasn't fear. It was confusion, mixed with kindness, and a lot of humor. Even world leaders began to soften. At a UN meeting, the Brazilian ambassador said, "Maybe they don't want war. Maybe they just want us to listen for once." But listening was hard in a world that never stopped talking. Back in Barcelona, Elena sat alone in her office again. She held a small clay tablet in her hands. On it was a single line in cuneiform. "When the sky returns, speak with your heart, not your noise." She wondered if anyone would understand that now, outside her window. The city buzzed. Cars honked, phones rang, music played from open windows. The world was loud. It always had been. And somewhere far above, silent ships waited, not for weapons, not for armies, but for a change. A change no one seemed ready to make. Yet even as she worried, Elena smiled faintly. Because if there was one thing humans were good at, it was surprising everyone, including themselves. And maybe, just maybe, they would find a way to say sorry without saying a word. 6 months after the first signal, the alien ships were still there. They floated in the sky like dark clouds that never rained. They stayed over oceans, deserts, and cities, always silent, always still. No one knew why they came. No one knew what they wanted. But one thing was clear. They were not here to fight. At first, people thought the ships would attack. Governments prepared for war. Soldiers trained. Missiles were checked. Emergency plans were dusted off. But nothing happened. The aliens did not shoot. They did not land. They did not even move when fighter jets flew close to them. Instead, they just watched, and then they started to act, but not in the way anyone expected. It began with small things. Satellites that tried to take close-up photos of the ships suddenly stopped working. Not broken, just quiet. Their signals vanished the moment they got too near. GPS systems in some areas flickered, then reset. Radio broadcasts near the ships went silent for a few seconds, then returned to normal. People called it the quiet zone. Scientists studied it carefully. They found that the ships created a kind of bubble around themselves, a space where human technology did not work properly. Not because it was destroyed, but because it was ignored, like a phone call that never rings because no one picks up. Then came the real test. One morning in June, a U.S. Air Force pilot named Captain Marcus Reed was ordered to fly near a ship hovering over the Nevada desert. His mission was simple: get close, take readings, and return. No weapons, just observation. He flew his F-35 fast and low. As he neared the ship, smooth, black, and shaped like a teardrop, his instruments began to blink. His radio went silent. His radar showed nothing even though the ship was right in front of him. Then something strange happened. The ship moved, not fast, not violently. It simply tilted as if making room and glided 10 meters to the left. It did not attack. It did not chase. It just got out of his way. Captain Reed flew past, stunned. When he landed, he told his commanders, it felt like it was being polite. The news spread quickly. People were confused. If this was war, why were the aliens acting like quiet neighbors? Around the same time, a Russian cargo rocket tried to launch from Kazakhstan. Its path would take it through the area where 3 alien ships hovered over the Caspian Sea. Ground control warned the pilots to delay. But the launch had already been postponed twice. They went ahead. The rocket lifted off, bright and loud, climbing into the blue sky. Then at 80 kilometers up, it stopped, not exploded, not crashed, just stopped. It hung in the air for 3 full minutes, engines off as if frozen. Then slowly it turned and flew back down, gently like a leaf falling, and landed safely in an empty field. No one was hurt. The cargo was fine. Engineers checked the rocket. Nothing was damaged. It was as if something had caught it, turned it around, and set it down with care. Again, the world watched and laughed. "Aliens don't like our space junk," joked a news anchor. "Guess we need to clean up before guests arrive." In schools, kids drew comics of aliens holding no parking signs in orbit. A popular video game added a new level where players had to sneak rockets past polite UFOs without making noise. But not everyone laughed. Military leaders grew frustrated. They tried everything. Drones were sent up, lost signal. Missiles were fired in tests, veered off course miles before reaching the ships. Even cyber attacks on global satellite networks failed. The alien system seemed to exist outside human code. It was like trying to argue with a mountain. Then came the blockade. One by one, the alien ships moved into key positions around Earth, not to attack but to block. They parked near major satellite lanes, near spaceports, near the paths used by cargo ships that carried supplies to space stations. They did not destroy anything. But they made it impossible to launch new missions. Any rocket that tried to leave Earth's atmosphere was gently turned back. Supplies for the International Space Habitat ran low. Astronauts were told to prepare for a long stay. Economists warned of trouble. Satellites controlled weather forecasts, banking, phone networks, and internet. If the aliens kept blocking access to space, life on Earth could slow down, maybe even break. But again, the public reaction was calm. Too calm. "Honestly, my internet's been slow anyway," said a man in Berlin, shrugging. "Maybe aliens will fix it." In Mumbai, a street vendor said, "If they want us to stay on Earth, fine. We've got enough problems here." Even when flights were delayed because air traffic systems glitched near alien ships, passengers just took selfies with the dark shapes in the sky and posted them online with captions like, "My pilot says aliens caused the delay. 1 star. Governments held emergency meetings. The UN debated sending a message, not a signal but a real message, written in many languages explaining that humans didn't mean to break the truce. But how do you send a letter to someone who won't answer your calls? Then something unexpected happened. A group of teenagers in Oslo built a small drone, not to spy but to say hello. They attached a tiny box with a handwritten note. "We're sorry we were loud. Can we talk?" They flew it toward a ship hovering over the North Sea. The drone rose, steady and slow. When it got within 100 meters, it stopped, hovered. Then gently it turned and flew back to the beach, note still inside, untouched. The teens posted the video. It got 50 million views in a day. People began to wonder, what if the aliens weren't enemies? What if they were just tired of noise, tired of chaos, tired of watching humans fight over land, money, and power while ignoring the stars? Scientists now believe the war was not real war. It was a formality, like a legal notice. In their culture, maybe, declaring war was just the way to say, "We're serious now. Pay attention." But humans weren't paying attention with fear. They were paying attention with jokes, art, and kindness. In Nairobi, a choir sang a song into a radio telescope, beaming soft voices into space. In Buenos Aires, artists painted a giant mural of Earth holding out an olive branch made of Wi-Fi symbols. In Seoul, engineers built a quiet satellite, one that sent no signals, just floated in peace, and launched it on a path far from the alien ships. To everyone's surprise, it worked. The aliens let it pass, hope grew. Maybe the truce could be fixed, but not everyone agreed. In some countries, fear turned to anger. "Why should we change for them?" asked a politician in Texas. "This is our planet. We'll launch what we want." His supporters held rallies. They burned mock alien flags. They demanded the military take back the sky. But when soldiers tried to fire a long-range missile toward a ship over the Pacific, the missile never left the ground. Its engine wouldn't start. Not broken, just silent, like it refused to obey. Even machines seemed to side with the aliens. Back in Geneva, Dr. Eris Thorne watched it all with quiet worry. He had studied the alien signals for months. He believed they were not cruel, but they were firm. Like parents watching a child throw a tantrum, they wouldn't hit back, but they wouldn't give in either. "They're waiting," he told a small group of scientists. "Not for us to fight, but for us to choose." Choose what? To be quiet, to be wise. To remember that Earth was not the center of the universe, just a small, noisy part of it. Meanwhile, in Barcelona, Dr. Elena Marquez received a strange package. Inside was a smooth black stone, warm to the touch. On it was carved a single symbol, the same star with 3 rings from the ancient tablets. No note. No message. Just the stone. She held it in her hands and felt a strange calm. Maybe it was a gift. Maybe it was a reminder, or maybe it was a test. Outside, the world kept moving. Cars drove. Children played. Birds flew under the silent ships. And high above, the aliens waited, not for weapons, not for surrender, but for a new kind of human voice, one that didn't shout, but spoke softly. So far, no one had used it. But the day was still young. As the months passed, something strange happened on Earth. The longer the alien ships stayed in the sky, the less people feared them. In fact, fear almost disappeared. Instead, something new took its place. Laughter, not nervous laughter. Not mocking laughter, but real, deep human laughter. The kind that comes when you realize the world is weirder and funnier than you thought. At first, it was just jokes online. Memes showed aliens filling out paperwork titled War Declaration Form, Part 3B. Cartoons pictured them stuck in cosmic traffic because Earth forgot to renew its Galactic Peace License. A popular t-shirt read, "Sorry for the noise. Blame TikTok." But soon the humor spread into real life. In Lisbon, a street performer dressed as an alien with a clipboard stood near a park, inspecting picnics and giving out fake tickets for excessive joy. Crowds gathered, laughing and posing for photos. In Jakarta, a cafe started serving Truce tea, a quiet herbal drink served in silence for 5 minutes just to practice being calm. In Mexico City, a theater group put on a play called The Day the Aliens Got Bored, where the invaders kept trying to start a war, but humans kept offering them tacos and dance challenges. Even schools joined in. Teachers used the alien situation to teach kids about peace, history, and listening. One class in Oslo wrote a letter to the ships. "Dear Sky friends, we're working on being quieter. Please don't cancel us." They tied it to a balloon and let it go. It floated up, popped, and the note drifted down into a neighbor's garden. The neighbor posted it online with the caption, "Alien mail returned to sender." Government still held serious meetings. Generals still frowned at maps. Scientists still ran tests. But the people? The people had made a choice, without voting, without planning. They chose not to be afraid. Psychologists tried to explain it. Dr. Naomi Chen, a professor in Toronto, said, "After decades of climate disasters, pandemics, and wars, people are tired of doom. When something truly huge happens, like aliens declaring war, the mind looks for relief. And laughter is the oldest relief we have." Others said it was deeper than that. "Maybe we finally understand," said an old fisherman in Vietnam speaking to a reporter. "They're not here to hurt us. They're here because we forgot how to be still. So we laugh, not to make fun, but to say, we see you. We're trying." The aliens, for their part, seemed confused. Their latest message came in October. It was longer this time. Translated, it read, "Humanity continues to violate the silence. Your signals grow louder. Your machines multiply. You show no sign of repentance. Final warning issued. Consequences will follow." But this message came with something new. A short video. It showed a cartoon-like animation of Earth. Tiny humans ran around shouting. Buildings exploded. Rockets flew everywhere. Then a big red button was pressed and the planet turned into dust. It was meant to scare. Instead, it became the most shared video of the year. Within hours, people remixed it. In one version, the humans were replaced with dancing cats. In another, the red button said, "Subscribe." A famous comedian reenacted the whole thing using puppets, ending with the aliens offering Earth a second chance coupon. Even the United Nations couldn't stay serious. During a formal session, the Brazilian ambassador accidentally played a remix of the alien warning as his phone ringtone. The whole room burst out laughing. including the Russian and American delegates who hadn't smiled at each other in years. The aliens tried harder. One clear afternoon over Geneva, the sky dimmed. Not like a cloud passing, but like someone turned down a light. The sun grew soft, golden quiet. Streetlights flickered on. Birds stopped singing. For exactly 7 minutes, the world felt like it was holding its breath. People looked up. Some gasped. Some took photos. Most just stood still and watched. Then, as quickly as it began, the light returned. Scientists later confirmed the alien ships had bent sunlight around Earth, like a lens. It was a display of power, but gentle. No harm done, just a reminder. We can change your sky. But again, humans responded with humor. That night, thousands gathered in parks with candles and glow sticks, holding a thank you for the sunset party. A musician in Cape Town wrote a song called 7 Minutes of Quiet and played it on a rooftop while people below swayed in silence. Even the military began to change. In Nevada, Captain Marcus Reed, the pilot who flew near the ship months earlier, was asked to lead a new mission. This time not to test defenses but to send a message. He loaded his jet with no weapons, only a small box containing seeds, soil, and a child's drawing of Earth and a spaceship holding hands. He flew up. The ship waited. As he neared, his radio crackled, not with static but with a soft tone like a chime. Then the ship tilted slightly as if bowing. He dropped the box. It floated down on a tiny parachute. The next day, children found it in a field. Inside, the drawing was gone. Only the seeds and soil remained. No one knew what it meant. But people liked to think the aliens had taken the drawing as a gift. Back in cities, life went on, but softer now. Fewer loud ads. Less shouting on the news. More music played quietly. More walks taken without phones. People began to notice the silence between sounds. The space where peace could grow. The aliens watched. They did not leave. They did not attack. But something in their presence changed. They no longer felt like judges. They felt like guests waiting for an invitation, and Earth, in its own messy, funny, human way, was finally learning how to invite. One evening in Reykjavik, a young girl named Saga stood on her porch, looking up at a ship hovering over the mountains. She held a small flute her grandfather had carved. She didn't play a song. She just held it out toward the sky and whispered, "We're listening now." She didn't know if they heard her, but for the first time in a long time, she felt quiet inside, and high above the stars, silent for 3,000 years, seemed to lean a little closer. 1 year after the first signal, the alien ships did something no one expected. They moved not away but down. Slowly, quietly, 3 of them descended toward Earth, not over a military base, not over a capital city, but over Reykjavik, Iceland, a small, peaceful place known for clean air, quiet nights, and hot springs. People gathered, but not in fear. They stood in the streets on hills by the sea, watching with calm eyes. Some held candles. Some held signs that said welcome in many languages. Children waved with glow sticks, their faces lit by soft blue light. The ships hovered just above the ground near a flat field outside the city. Then a door opened, not with a hiss or a flash, but with a gentle slide. And out stepped not soldiers, not monsters, but beings. They were tall, thin, with smooth gray skin and large dark eyes that held no anger, only deep, quiet sadness. They wore simple robes like diplomats, not warriors. In their hands they carried no weapons. Only small devices that glowed faintly like lanterns. The world held its breath, but the aliens did not speak. They simply stood and waited. Within hours, the United Nations sent a team. Not generals, not spies, but a group of quiet people. A poet from Kenya, a farmer from New Zealand, a teacher from Canada, a scientist from Japan, and a young girl named Saga, the same girl who had played the flute to the sky months before. They walked toward the aliens, empty-handed. When they were close, one of the aliens raised a hand. A soft light came from its palm. Images appeared in the air, floating clear like dreams made real. They showed Earth long ago. Humans building the first cities, sharing fire, telling stories under stars. Then faster images, wars, smoke, shouting, machines filling the sky with noise. The message was clear. We watched. We waited. We hoped you would remember. Then, new images. Children laughing, people planting trees, musicians playing, strangers helping each other after a storm. The aliens pointed to these and made a sound, soft like wind through leaves. It was not a word. It was approval. The humans understood. The war was never real. It was a test, a final chance. Now the aliens offered a choice: renew the truce or be left alone forever. But this time, humanity spoke, not with signals, not with weapons, but with words. The poet stepped forward. "We were loud," she said, "because we were afraid. But we are learning to be quiet, not silent, just kind." The farmer added, "We don't need to own the sky. We just want to share it." Saga the girl held out her flute. The lead alien looked at it, then gently touched it with one long finger. A single note rang out, clear and pure. In that moment something changed. The aliens nodded. One of them reached into their robe and pulled out a small stone, black and smooth with the 3-ring star carved into it. They placed it in Saga's hand. Then they showed one last image, a new document. Not a truce, not a treaty of silence, but something new. The humans translated the symbol slowly. It was called the Covenant of Mutual Bewilderment. It meant, "We do not understand you. You do not understand us, but we choose to wonder together." The UN team agreed. No signatures were needed, no armies. Just a shared look, a nod, and a quiet promise. The next day, the world learned what happened. There were no grand speeches, no parades, just a simple message from the UN. The sky is open again. Let's be gentle with it. And something amazing followed. The alien ships did not leave right away. For weeks they stayed, now not as guards but as guests. In Reykjavik, people left small gifts at the edge of the field: bread, flowers, drawings. The aliens never took them, but they always bowed in thanks. Scientists asked if they could share knowledge. The aliens showed them how to clean polluted rivers with light, how to grow food in dry lands using sound. But they refused to give weapons or ways to control others. Wisdom is not power, they seemed to say. It is care. Then one morning the ships rose into the sky. Not fast, not with fire, just lifting like birds at dawn. People waved. Some cried. Most just stood in silence, watching. As the last ship disappeared into the blue, a soft chime echoed across the planet. Not through speakers, but in the air itself. Like a memory. Life returned to normal. But it was a new kind of normal. Satellites worked again. Rockets launched. But now every signal sent into space carried a short message at the end. We are listening. And every new satellite had a small flute-shaped antenna, just in case. Schools taught the story of the truce not as science fiction, but as a lesson in humility. Even the stars get tired of noise, teachers said. Sometimes the bravest thing is to be quiet. In homes, families spent more time talking face to face, less time shouting into screens. Cities turned down loud ads. Music festivals added silent zones where people just sat and listened to the wind. And every year, on March 14th, Earth celebrated Bewilderment Day, not with fireworks, but with shared meals, quiet walks, and stories told under the stars. Children made flutes from reeds and played one note toward the sky. Years later, when new signals came from deeper space, fainter, stranger, humans did not panic. They listened. They waited. And when they replied, they sent not data, not demands, but a simple song. One note held long and soft. Like a breath, the universe, it turned out, did not want war. It wanted wonder. And Earth, after all its noise and mess, had finally learned how to offer it. In a small house in Reykjavik, Saga kept the black stone on her windowsill. On clear nights it glowed faintly like a heartbeat. She never knew if it was magic or memory, but she liked to think it was both. And sometimes when the world felt too loud again, she would pick up her flute, step outside, and play that one pure note, just in case someone, somewhere among the stars, was still listening.